Okay, the second Austrian turn is going to be very much the same as the first one, I think. So with this command, they're going to continue to move forward with the infantry. I think the artillery will unlimber, or attempt to unlimber, to provide fire support. Meanwhile, the cavalry doesn't particularly want to go into this village and woods, so I think this is going to wheel along here to block the flank of this march. I will also reposition the general, because he might be needed to give commands to this side here. These units are happy, I think, to continue on bombarding, and this units here are going to be able to roll for activation to start moving this turn. So let's now move Stolberg's command. So over here, the infantry want to march forward, so they go forward one, base like so, and these follow like so. The artillery wishes to unlimber, so unlimbering is an action test. So they roll a dice and they succeed on anything but a 1 or 2. They rolled 6, so they limber. Fine. Over here, these units want to wheel around like that. Because wheeling is a non-standard movement, it requires an action test. Anything which is a non-standard moving forward normally requires an action test. In this case, it's a normal action test, so they fail on a 1 or 2, so they roll the dice and get 5, and they wheel like so. Okay. So that completes the Austrian move. They now can do some firing. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to do allocating artillery and any resulting morale tests from that. So we now have a second gun able to fire, this here. So the 2 units here are both going to hit that. Because it's long range fire, the one gun firing wouldn't normally cause a morale test, but 2 do. A morale test is effectively for combat and firing and that kind of thing. There isn't any separate combat or firing or melee in these rules. You just take morale tests. Infantry units have 3 morale failures, cavalry units have 2. So you roll 2d6 with some modifiers, and if the modified score is 8 or better, you've passed your test. If the modified score is 4 to 7, you lose 1 of your morale failures, and when you get to nothing, the unit is removed. If you score a modified score of 3 or less, then the unit is destroyed. So let's now work out the factors. Okay, so for the morale test, the unit will get a +1 because it is under long range artillery fire. Both of these units are outside 3 base widths, which is normal artillery range, so they get +1 for that. They get another +1 because they are in cover in the wood, in the edge of the wood, so that's +2. And then a third plus because they are grenadiers. You can see they're grenadiers, so they get +1 for being elite and being grenadiers. That's a grand total of +3 overall. The black dice means they are determined, so they have 1 extra morale failure compared to normal units. So they have 4 morale failures as opposed to the normal units who only have 3. But all Prussian infantry, unless they are tiny, have got are small, so they get a -1 for being small. So they get +1 for long range artillery fire, +1 for the cover, +1 for being elite, which is +3, but then -1 for being small, so a grand total of +2 overall. They've rolled 2d6 and they've scored 8, so 8 + 2 is 10. They've passed and there's no effect. The final part of the Austrian turn is to roll to see if this command can be activated. Zweibrücken's command can be activated. For this, they need to roll a d10 and score 10 on the dice. But they will get a +1 for each turn that they've failed, so eventually they will succeed. If they roll a natural 1, that's always a failure. So they roll to see if they will become active next turn, and they need a 10, and they rolled 6, so they're still going to be inactive next turn. Time for the Prussians to decide what to do.